Uh, just do that. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be with you virtually. I'm based in the UK, in the south of England, near Portsmouth, but I actually come from, was born up in Scotland, so you may hear a slightly Scottish accent. I'm not going to apologize for that, but if at any time I speak too quickly or I'm using any language that you don't understand, please feel free to just stop me, put your hand up or your virtual hand and ask me to clarify or to slow down. That'll be absolutely fine. I can get quite enthusiastic when I'm speaking, but I'll do my best. Likewise, if I tell any examples of stories that don't relate culturally, my apologies for that. Again, please just point that out and I'll use another analogy. So yeah, I've been in Toastmasters for about 17, 18 years now, I think. I've been president of my club. I'm a member of 2 clubs down in the South Coast here. I've been a member I've been president of one of those clubs twice. I've been an area director. I consciously chose not to do any higher roles in Toastmasters, primarily because I'd been in a previous organization called JCI, or Junior Chamber, and I'd been a club president, I'd been an area director, I'd been a national president, I'd been an international vice president for JCI. So I kind of done all that stuff, and I just wanted to focus in on the club level, because I'm very passionate about Toastmasters, and I believe that the clubs and the members are at the heart of the organization. And you can agree or disagree with this, but I can think sometimes as people go up the hierarchy, they get more focused on what's above them, and they forget the people below them if they're not careful. And so I wanted to focus on the bit that I like most, which is the members. And I joined because I was a trainer. I did a lot of public speaking, so I wasn't a nervous speaker per se, but I was worried about. I'd gone self-employed. I was running my own business, and I was worried about getting into bad habits. You know what it's like. It's like driving. If I said to you all now that I've arranged with Meltem that outside your house after this meeting, there's going to be a driving tester who's going to put you through your driving test again and see whether you pass or fail. No doubt many of you would pass, but some of you might fail, not because you're necessarily bad drivers, but you may have just picked up a few little habits, bad habits along the way. And I think the same thing can happen with public speaking. So I joined Toastmasters to challenge myself to keep up my improve and maintain my standard as a speaker. And it certainly delivered for me, and that's why I'm still in it 17, 18 years later. I am also, I run my own business, and I've been networking for probably about 15, 16 years. When I went self-employed, and suddenly it was I had to find customers. I'd moved from Scotland to the south of England. I had to get to know people and build up a network of potential clients. I had a network of people who I'd worked for my previous employer, and I was able to use those contacts to get started. But fairly quickly, I was running out of opportunities, and I realized I needed to have generate more opportunities for the business I was in. And therefore, I thought I need to get out and about, and I started to look for other networking organizations. And I went to a networking organization. It was an organization in the UK. It was sort of government sponsored, so it was free of charge, which was even better, called Business Link, it was called. And there was a local meeting near me. and I went along to it, and I was very nervous, just as I was the first Toastmasters meeting. Who are these people? I don't know them. What are they going to be like? And they're all going to be big, successful business people, and I'm just starting out. And but I turned out they were just human beings like me. Some of them were, larger companies, but a lot of them were smaller organizations, were people starting out. They were entrepreneurs, and I found that I got a huge benefit from that, based, both in terms of business contacts, but also socially, and making new friends, and being able to meet with people who had similar challenges to me, and we could compare notes on what worked and what didn't work. So there was a lot of informal learning that came from being part of the business networks. And over the years, I've joined several different groups in this part of the world, and some have been better for me than others. And I've learned a lot about what works in networking and what doesn't work. And so what I would like to do today is to sort of share some of my learnings, and just get you to think about networking, because there's more to networking than just turning up at a meeting with a box of business cards and handing them out and hoping you'll get some business or you make some contacts. Meltem, is it possible for us to do the poll? Because I've got a couple of polls I wanted to run, if the technology will allow, just to gather a little bit of information about your level of experience with networking. So the first one is, two questions there. How many networking events have you attended in the last 12 months? Roughly, just an estimate. 0, between 1 and 5, between 6 and 10, more than 11. And on a scale of 1 to 4, how valuable has your networking been for you, either directly for your business or in terms of career development? So if you'd just like to click on those, that would be wonderful, if it's working. Yeah.
I guess it's not working.
No, I was just looking at that. It's can't do it. Anyway, not to worry. Can you just put in the chat what is, if you do question 1, just put a number, either 0, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, or 11 plus. That would be wonderful. Just give me a rough idea, and I can have a look in the chat. Okay, something between 1 and 2, 5, 5, 1. Great. So yeah, that just gives me a rough idea. And in terms of how valuable networking has been to you so far, how would you rate it between 1 and 5 in terms of how useful it's been to your business or to your personal growth? So where have we got here? We've got 2 not attended a networking event yet. Yeah. Significant, 3. Great. Okay, so we've got quite a nice range of different levels of experience and levels of business. Oops, there we go. The final thing I wanted to say, well, really was to ask you just now, was what have you got any particular outcomes that you would like to achieve from this workshop? Is there anything you particularly like to get out of this session, or any particular questions that you want answered? Again, just pop those in the chat. Right, to improve my intercultural networking skills. Excellent. Any more? Okay, right. Well, that's fine if we've got there. So what I plan to do is kind of divide my talk into sort of three main bits, which is kind of what is networking, then to think about how do we communicate clearly with clarity and confidence when we're networking, and then a little bit about well, I've got four bits actually, sorry, I should say perfecting your networking pitch, because most networking events there is some kind of opportunity to give an elevator pitch, to use that very American phrase, but to introduce yourself to the group. Normally, certainly in the ones I've been to, it's a limited amount of time. It's maybe 45 seconds or a minute or thereabouts. And that's quite a challenge to have to try and summarize what you do in an interesting way to a group of people in less than a minute so that they can remember it. But we'll talk around some tips around that. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about follow-ups, because I think, again, a common mistake that people make is they just do their networking at the networking events if they're going there, whether it's a conference, whether it's a formal networking group, whether it's just a business meeting where you meet a group of people. And for me, a lot of the benefit from networking comes from following up after the meeting and building on that initial relationship, that initial contact that you've made. So that's the sort of agenda for us today. So we'll start by thinking about what is networking. And before I say it, one other thing is, again, I'd like to emphasize that within the timescale I've got, absolutely, you can leave the questions to the end if you want to, but if you've got a burning question, just raise your hand at any point, raise the little hand icon in Zoom, and hopefully either I'll spot it or Meltem will, and I'll try and take those questions as they come. As Toastmasters, you know that's a risky strategy because you lose a little bit of control, but with the time scale we've got, it's not a 7-minute speech, so it should be fine. And to do with that, I just want to say that for me, one of my golden rules is there is no such thing as a stupid question. So I see too many people who are afraid to ask questions because they don't want to look stupid. But somebody said to me once something that's always stuck with me, that is, if you ask the question that nobody else will answer, everybody else that wanted to know the answer to that will be eternally grateful to you for having asked that question. And I've been on that myself, where I was in a business meeting and everybody was sitting there nodding, yeah, oh, absolutely, as the speaker spoke. And then I said, I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit stupid here. I don't understand what you mean by that particular term. And he said, no, that's no problem. And he went on to explain it. And then in the coffee break, the number of people that came up to me and said, thank goodness you asked that question, because I didn't have a clue what he was trying to say either. So I think you'll gain much more from asking questions than you will from not asking questions. So what is networking? It's one of these sort of bizarre things. It's you look up networking in Google and you'll probably get lots of posts about computer networks and all that sort of thing. But what I'm talking about is human interpersonal networks. And I think human beings, we're all networkers. We have a family network. We have, if we work in an organization, we have a network of colleagues that we've got to know and that we have a certain degree of trust and understanding of when we're there. If we're part of Toastmasters, we're Toastmasters. It's not a networking organization per se, but it's a place where you make connections and you get to know people and you build friendships. So Toastmasters is a type of networking organization. But of course, there are some specific organizations nowadays that are set up to facilitate business networking. I think the biggest in the world is still an organization called BNI, Business Networks International. I don't know if it's, I'm sure it has a presence. I know it has a website in Turkey. I don't know how many clubs and BNI clubs. Anybody been to a BNI meeting or heard of BNI? I've been to a few over here. I've never joined it. But although I've known a lot of people who've got benefit from it, but what I don't like about it is, one, it's very expensive. Certainly over here anyway, it is to join. You have to pay quite a big upfront fee. It's a weekly meeting, so you're committed to attending every week, and you have to pay for every meeting, whether you attend or not. So it adds up to quite a lot of money. It's quite a restricted group of people. They have a rule that you can only have one person per business type or tradition. So you can only have one accountant or one website designer or one HR consultant or one financial advisor, whatever it would be. And they sell that as being it's sort of, you, by doing that, you're the exclusive, you're the go-to person for everybody in the room on that speciality. And there's an element of truth in that, but I think in this modern world, it's very restrictive. You know, I know several financial advisors, and I would recommend different financial advisors to different people based on perhaps the specific area of financial advice they give on, or their personality. Because, you know, we don't all get on, we're not all the same, we're all quite different. And there'll be some people who will be a bit more relaxed, there'll be some people who are a bit more formal, and I will recommend people to that based on that personality. So I like to have a choice of people. But, you know, I'm not knocking BNI, it's been a very successful organization for a long time. But that's one model of networking. I've seen a lot more groups that have come up, certainly in the UK, that are much more inclusive. They don't put a restriction on how many people per business type are there. So you could have several web designers or financial advisors or salespeople or whatever it is. Because they realize that actually there are potentials for collaboration. It's not just about competing with these people. You may have a different niche within that marketplace, and you could actually refer business to people, you know, that you don't do, to people who in the same organization who do the type of thing you do, and vice versa. So I think having a quite an open, inclusive mindset, it certainly works for me. And of all the people I found, the majority of people prefer that type of networking, certainly in the UK. I don't know about in Turkey. Partly, I think that's because, you know, the purpose of networking, in my mind, is not just as a place to sell yourself or your business and to sell products and to get referrals. That is part of it. That is one of the benefits of it. But I think networking goes much wider than that, and I'll say more about that in a little bit. With networking, it's, you know, you've got to ask yourself, who do I want to network with? Do I have specific type of people, specific industries? Do I want to, you know, find potential customers? Do I want to network with my colleagues? As we've said, you know, internally within a business, networking can be really useful in terms of career development. You know, as the old saying goes, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That sometimes, you know, building a persona within your organization and getting to know people in different departments and different areas, not only does that broaden your horizons in terms of job opportunities, it opens up your visibility within the organization. So when somebody's looking for a particular skill set and they've met you, you know, you're more likely to get, you know, even though you might have to apply through the normal, you know, formal processes, the fact that somebody knows you and has met you and trusts you or heard good things about you, that certainly can't do you any harm, and you know, may well do you a lot of good as well. you know, networking, as I said, networking with competitors can be quite interesting. One, you can get an insight into who your competitors are and what they do and what their take is, because they're having to pitch their business, and you can see their pitch, if you like, as well. That can be useful. But also, as I said, it's that there's a lot of potential for collaboration and cooperation. Beyond that, as I was saying to Ashraf in the kind of pre-start discussion, it's about, for me, it's not about just finding customers, it's finding potential introducers. It's finding people who know other people who might be interested in your product or service or business idea. And if you think about it, you think of how many people you know who are in your circle, your family circle, your business circle, the people you meet through Toastmasters, etc. You probably know at least a couple of hundred people, I suspect, who might be interested in the product or service of somebody else you've met through networking. And you might be having a conversation with, oh, I'm really struggling. I need to find somebody I can trust to write my will or to do my house buying or house selling or something like that. And you could think, oh, do I know anybody in my network who I could refer them to, I could recommend them to? And you may or may not. But there's probably at least 2 or 3 people in the room at any given time who would know somebody of the type that you're looking for. So that is a huge benefit, potential benefit from networking. And it can be all sorts of things. I've seen it where people are not looking for anything to do with business at all. It might be they're looking for, I don't know, a recommendation for a childminder or a decorator or a tradesperson or something, like a good car mechanic or whatever. It's all sorts of types of recommendation. It's almost like your own mini, your mini network, your social network. You can go into Facebook and say, I'm looking for somebody to do this, or I'm looking for recommendations for a good restaurant. But you can do that on a more personalized level at a networking meeting or a networking organization. So those are for me some of the kind of ideas around networking. So we've got our personal networks, we've got our own kind of built-in business networks if we're working in an office or a company. We've got the kind of groups and clubs and social events or sports clubs that we go to. We meet people there, we maybe have a drink with them or a chat with them afterwards. They're part of our network. But you may or may not know what they do, what their business is in detail. So that's where the business networking clubs come in, like BNI and others that allow you to formally network. And I was having a quick look online to see if I could see any in Turkey, and I found I found there was an organization called, I think, the Istanbul Business Networking Group, who've got something on Meetup. And they have virtual tea parties, I think they called it, where people can get together. I found another one, it was a Turkish business network on LinkedIn, but actually I think it was a Turkish guy in London who was running a networking group for people who wanted to, have business connections in the UK. So that was another one. With online type of networking now, we've got this huge opportunity to network with the whole world. As some of you may well have experienced through your Toastmasters meetings and attending clubs in other countries. So it's been remarkable the way it's opened up the world to all of us. Any comments or questions about the, sort of kind of what is networking in a nutshell so far? You feel free just to unmute yourself and ask a question or make a comment. Natalie, do you want to say something? No. I just saw you come off mute, so I thought, is it Nurbani? Have you got a question or a comment?
I just thought that, sometimes we are fully focused on to expand our network, and we're going to some meetings and getting known each other to the people who are related with our business. However, on the other hand, this is kind of focused networking. I just want to say it that way. But somehow we also have some natural networking. I mean, that in a working place that we are placed in, people that we share the project and complete it, and we are changing our work, and that people become our network, and we need to protect our connections with that people. They are valuable. You shared a lot of things with that people, but at the end of your journey, you're separating your way and trying to conquer the new ways, new destinations, but you still have a connection in somehow with that people. But that natural bonded networking should be managed, and really hard to manage, because when you change a lot, that rate increases, and it's really become an unmanageable. The point that I'm stuck for now is that I'm really I need a support or advices how to manage this natural network, natural expanded network via your sharings with the people that you had a chance.
That's a really good point. I think you're absolutely right. There are many different types of network, and it is one of the biggest challenges. How do we kind of keep on top of this all, and how do we keep in contact with people, and who do we remember who they were? And, oh God, I met this really interesting person. I remember working. Oh, there was somebody. Who was it again? And I've struggled with it too. One of the things I'm not a great fan of LinkedIn as a social network or a business network, but I do find that I do use it as a way of connecting with people, at least keeping some sort of record, not a detailed record, but at least if somebody's struck me as being somebody that I've enjoyed working with or enjoyed meeting, I've connected with them or tried to connect with them in LinkedIn, or ask them to connect rather, so that I've got their details there and I can find them in the future. And sometimes just seeing their photograph or whatever will prompt me. I've experimented with using my contacts in Google to create groups. But I ended up with so many different groups from different things, it just became unmanageable. And I've kind of gone back to just this simple thing of using LinkedIn predominantly. But I'd love to know if anybody else has come up with any, or has anybody else uses any other techniques for kind of monitoring or managing or connecting with their network.
Just a quick question, Gavin. Okay, when you try to create groups with the people that you want to, proceed your connection, what kind of a content did you share with them through that groups? This is a social network, because you're not publishing weekly news or something.
I didn't connect with them in terms of LinkedIn. I didn't connect with them in groups. I just connect them as an individual, if you like. We followed each other effectively, if you like. And sometimes if I saw what they were posting, and that kept me in the loop of what they were doing, maybe, or if they'd career changed, then I might send them a little message to say, oh, congratulations on your new job, how's it going, those sort of things. So it just kind of, I find it quite useful to prompt it. With LinkedIn, I'm not a great content creator. I don't know, as I've got older, I get more and more sort of cynical about social media in general, and LinkedIn, I find, like a lot of social media, even Facebook, to say there's an awful lot of stuff from business people that it's just kind of all the posts and everything, or the contacts, or buy my stuff, it's or it's all aimed at selling something, and I still think that's the wrong way to build a network. The way to build a network is to connect and try and build a relationship, find out about each other, share things, whether it's things about musical taste or hobbies or interests, because I think that's the way we build trusted relationships. you know, deeper relationships than just, you know, I make this, you want to buy it, we have a you know, yes or no sort of thing. And I still get requests from people on LinkedIn. Oh, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? And I look at them and I think, have I met you before anywhere? Not that I can think so. You know, they haven't put any contact, said, oh, I met you at the JCI meeting or at the Toastmasters meeting last week. Just wanted to connect with you. I was fascinated with your topic. I found this article that I thought you might be interested in based on what you'd said. You know, that idea of sharing something that might be valuable to the other person that you've found, you know, that's quite a nice thing to do. But I've seen some people who then they've got some kind of automatic post thing that just generates post, and you just get spammed with lots of articles that you didn't ask for, that you're not interested in. They haven't attempted to personalize it anyway. They've just bleh, and let's see what happens. And you know, you may be lucky now and again. It's a scattergun approach. But I think, from my experience, a personalized approach to keeping in touch with people is the most useful one. You know, even if it's just to say happy birthday. I mean, I've just had my birthday, and a lot of my old network, some people I haven't seen for years, still connect, and we have a joke and a chat about something, and I know they're there. And if I needed, you know, we just keep that bond alive. And some of them, those bonds are much stronger, much deeper, because they're somebody I see on a much more regular basis, or we've got something even stronger in common. But there's still a group of people I know I can go to. If I've got a problem or I've got a challenge, I could put it out to my network and say, has anybody got any tips for this, or can anybody recommend a product for that, or can anybody do this? To me, it's like trying to create your own personalized version of Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, but that you control who's in it and who's not in it, rather than getting lots of adverts and irrelevant stuff. And anybody else find any tools or techniques to manage your network and keep in touch with them? Meltem.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think, you know, since my childhood, I was good in networking with my, you know, teachers and friends. So it continued, you know, along the way. I'm an agricultural engineer. I studied also in Italy and Spain. So when I work in a seed company, they value my experiences. And also in the last company, I mean, big organizations value your networks, because, you know, if you have diversity of in your background, because they can, they know that you can solve the issues more quickly through your network. So I also emphasize that in the interviews, job interviews. But as you said, it's really needs effort to keep alive that networks. You have to always, you know, contact or congratulate or, you know, praise people for, you know, things. Yeah, I mean, I naturally do that, but sometimes when, you know, time, you know, in time, when you don't meet individually, or when you don't share anything anymore, it's like you are just trying to make alive something that is already dead. Yeah, that feeling is a bit discouraging. But yeah, I mean, it's also difficult for me to asking for help. I mean, I'm good in asking for help for my company, for instance, but for personal things, I'm not good at. I personally, also in my family or relationships, I'm not good at asking for help. I need to improve. That's part of me. Yeah. So what you all shared so far is very beneficial. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of that you know, that relationships don't last forever, and that sometimes, you know, it's the effort in keeping things going is too much for the, you know, the cost benefit ratio to make it sound very, very business like. It's not worth it. And I think if you think about things in life, we meet people, we come together with people for a while through work or whatever, and sometimes we stay with them, stay friends with them for the rest of our lives. And other people we meet for a while and it's beneficial and we get to know them and things like that. And then we split up again and we never see them again. And other times we see them, we split up, and then maybe we come back together at some point in the future and we meet up and the memory is kindled. But there are all types of relationships. And I know I try to go through my LinkedIn connections, for instance, on a fairly, you know, at least a couple of times a year, and I have a sort of cull of them and think, do I still want to be connected to that person? Have we had anything, you know, have we had any meaningful conversations during it? Is there anything? And so I thought, you know, okay, they may still send me a birthday, you know, message, but it's just a standard, oh, you know, or just this, you know, the stock reply, congratulations on your birthday or congratulations on your new job. There's no attempt to find out what the new job is or how you're getting on, or they don't ask, you know, they don't say, well, yeah, well, here's how I am, how are you, kind of thing. And so I will unfollow or disconnect from people to try and keep that network manageable. And the other thing, as you said, it's about, you know, I think networks can be a great source of help and expertise in specific areas. And if there are some areas of your life that, oh, it'd be really useful to know somebody who is a bit of experience there, then kind of just set your filters and try and find, you know, meet somebody like that and you know, actively build up that relationship, so you can help each other. Because I think that the one of the great truths about networking is it's about, if you go into a network with a mindset of I'm not coming in here to just take. It's like any form of relationship. If you just go enter into it with the basis, I want to take from you, I want all your help, but don't ask me to do anything for you. You know, those relationships run out very quickly in most cases. But actually, if you go in there with a mindset of wanting to help other people, and that you actively, if you hear them saying that I'm looking for such and such, you know, run through your own mental checklist of who do I know who might be of relevance to them, and either say to that person, oh, I've got a friend who's looking for this, are you happy for me to introduce you? So, you know, and put those two people in connection, whether it's via LinkedIn, whether it's via email, to do that, to be not a matchmaker, but just to kind of connect up people, or, you know, that I think is the most valuable mindset in networking. Because in my experience, that if you do stuff for people without looking for a quid pro quo, you'll feel, you know, happy because you'll get satisfaction from actually helping other people. And I think most of us as human beings, we like to help other people, but you'll find that what you put out will come back to you one way or another. It may not happen immediately, but it might be 6 months later, a year later, somebody will give you an unexpected referral, or you get a piece of business, or you get somebody contacts you and you say, oh, by the way, how did you get my name? Oh, well, I've got this friend, you know, Nurbanu, who said they met you in on an online meeting, and you said you were looking for when you said you were looking for a speaker, I immediately thought of them, and I dug up their details out of my you know, old email or whatever, and passed it on. So you never know where these things will come back. What else was I going to say there? One of the big things I think for me that's critical to networking is actually when you enter, you know, and it'll be different for different groups, but you think, why am I going to this networking event or this networking organization, this meeting? What's my objective or my intention for that? mean, is it I'm looking for new business and I want to, I want to build connections? Is it I'm going there because I want to sell? I've got 5 of these products and I want to, sell them today or something. Is it to help other people, as I've said, which is a really powerful one? Is it to gain introductions? Is it to get referrals? You've done work for somebody, will they refer you to other people? Or is it just, more generally to build relationships and friendships? They're all valid outcomes. But I think the straight selling one is the least, in most cases. I wouldn't say it never works, but it's the most intrusive one, I think, for people. Because most of us, as somebody said, we all love to buy things, but we don't like to be sold to. And if somebody's just standing up there, hello, my name is so-and-so, and this is my business, buy my stuff, it's for most of us, it's kind of off-putting. I mean, I know when I go to webinars and things like that, and you get this thing in the first 30 minutes, the person is wittering on about them and their book that they've got and their other course they've got and their online course, and you could get this, whatever. Before you as the audience get any value from it, then that really irritates me. Demonstrate how good you are or what your knowledge is in a webinar, and then maybe at the end say, by the way, if you like this and you want to attend, I do have, here's a link to an online course or to a book or whatever it is. That's reasonable. They've earned the right to do that. But I don't think to earn the right to sell to somebody, I think you need to take an interest in them first. You need to get to know them and get them talking rather than just spouting at them. Any other thoughts from you guys about, kind of why do you go to networking meetings? What sort of things do you want? What's your intention for them if you've gone to them so far?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep those contacts warm? Because if you met in an event that it's once a year, then, well, before it was in person, but now it's virtual. So So how to keep the communication flowing?
I think this leads me into what I was saying earlier about, if I jump ahead to this whole thing about follow-up, it's deepening the connection afterwards. It might be, if you live in the same town or whatever, to say, hey guy, I really enjoyed meeting you at that meeting the other day. I'd love to know more about what you do, or I'd love to have a chat to you about that because I'm interested in that too. Would you like to meet up for a coffee or something like that? So a physical meeting where you can meet face to face, what we would call a one-to-one. To build that relationship, and at the end of that you might find that this person is really, we have got a lot in common and I do want to do this, or it might be actually I'm not so convinced now, and that could be both of you could think that, or one of you could think that. I used to go to one networking event where the second half of the meeting, part of it, you had 3 10-minute appointments where you'd arrange to meet up with one of the other people in the room, and you'd have 10 minutes to chat. So it would be 30 minutes in total, 10 minutes for each of the 3 people, and somebody would manage the time and ring a bell and you'd move on. It was a bit like a sort of speed dating type thing, but on a networking format. So they gave you the chance in the meeting to have a little one-to-one, which was quite nice to get to know people. So you'd be listening to people and think, oh, who would I like to get to know a bit more? And you'd pick 3 people and try and nab them before somebody else nabbed them. But not many groups I've met do that. So we have to be more proactive in saying we're going to create some one-to-ones to get to know that person. And most of the time you're going to do that with people that you're interested in, but sometimes it can be quite fascinating to have a one-to-one with somebody who is deliberately has a different approach to you, just to for the curiosity of finding out, I wonder why they think that, because I disagree with them, but I'd just love to know what it is that they what makes them think that or believe that. So you can challenge, you don't have to just go with the people that you share a lot in common with. Sometimes it can be quite interesting to have a one-to-one with somebody who's a bit different, and just to see if your kind of initial prejudices of whatever are accurate, or they may not be, as is often the case when you really get to know that person one-to-one. So I think it's about doing that. It's about keeping in touch, whether it, you do the same on Zoom. You could schedule a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call. There's got to be a desire to do it, at least to invite them and see if they want to do that. Not everybody will want to do it. But again, I would say, don't just use it as, right, now that you've agreed to meet me, I want to go through my sales pitch with you. I think it's still got to be about building that relationship and getting to know them. And finding out where you have things in common, where you have differences. And the more you can get them to talk about their business or their life or what makes them tick or their interests, the more they'll want to hear what you have to say. There's a psychological principle which they call reciprocity, which is if you do something for someone else, there's kind of almost a psychological imperative to do the same back to that person. And if you're the one that initiates that discussion, then you listen to them, you ask them lots of questions, and don't just ask them a question and then as soon as they've answered go, well, anyway, what I really wanted to tell you, and you hijack the whole conversation, make it more about them, and then allow them to ask you what you do or what your business is, and then they've given you permission to talk about your business to them.
Before proceed to another topic, so you said that to make that connections warm, let invite them one-on-one meetings and invite for a coffee or something, and let give a chance, ask the right questions, and give a chance them to introduce themselves more than introducing yourself. So what about the online sessions or online meetings? I'm a Toastmaster member, and I only had a chance to know the virtual area, and this is really have a lot of cons on the one hand, but I know that most of our friends willing to see back to the days of physical meetings, and we're hearing that this is a black box for me because I haven't experienced that one.
Sure.
So you're experienced person, and you had already experienced how create bonds in a physical networking meetings and preceding them, and right now in the last 2 years you already experienced in creating bonds in a virtual area and preceding them. So do you believe that when we came together and met with one people via Zoom, so assume that this is also another networking event, is it possible to create that kind of strength bonds that we created in a real-time events? Is it really works, or because you already tried two ways better than us? So I really want to hear it more.
I think that's a really interesting question, and I think my first thing that came into my head was I think it's much harder to do it online. But then I'm coming from a perspective of having done most of my networking when I first started face-to-face. So going on to Zoom, I miss the physical aspect of it, and just be able to read somebody's body language and connect with them. I think doing a one-to-one Zoom, it's easier because again, you don't have the distractions, you don't have multiple people in the gallery, and that you feel if you're only speaking to one person, it's like going into a physical meeting, in the Toastmasters meeting, and just picking one person in the audience and just delivering your speech to them, knowing that the rest of the audience are watching. I find that quite uncomfortable. I want to include everybody in the room, and I think it's the same on a group Zoom call. But we can still have one-to-one Zoom calls and have more of that interpersonal linkage. Again, the body language is still a little bit, because we see less of our body language because we're in this limited sort of space, depending on how far back we are. But it's certainly not impossible. And it probably is going to be easier for your generation and those people growing up on Zoom than it is for those of us who learned our networking before Zoom, if like BZ rather than AZ. So that I'm going to think a bit more about that, because it's interesting how you can somebody say, oh no, it's not the same. No, you can't do it. It's whatever. But actually, I don't see why it shouldn't. We're still two human beings talking. We can hear each other. We can see each other. We just have you could argue in some respects it gives a degree of security that you're with a male and female or whatever, being in a room could be more intimidating, and nowadays sadly there's all sorts of possibilities of things going wrong, so that it adds a degree of security which actually might put people at their ease compared with a physical meeting, or for people who are that bit more anxious about meeting people face to face, that little bit of extra distance could be a benefit. But I have lots of Zoom meetings with people, and I can still have a good conversation, and we can still have a laugh and a joke and do that. So I don't see why it can't do. It's just you've got to be aware of the limitations of Zoom, I think, and try and make the most of it. I mean, with Toastmasters, I often think, oh gosh, how do we? Because in my club, usually at the beginning of the meeting, as people come in, some people will stand and chat, and as we're setting up the room and things like. We meet one meeting a month face to face, and one meeting a month on Zoom. And some people only do the face to face, some people only do the Zoom, and some people do both. So it gives people a choice then. But at the end of the meeting, we meet in a hotel, and there's a bar downstairs, and we go down, and not everybody, but maybe 5 or 6 or 7 people go down and have a drink, and we'll chat for an hour could be about the meeting, it could be about work, it could be about all sorts of things. And I love those informal conversations, and those are kind of harder on Zoom, unless you gave everybody a break, put people in pairs in a breakout room, but then that makes it a bit more formal again. So again, that's some of the restrictions about doing it online. But I don't know if that helps or not, but I think it's an absolutely brilliant question, and I'm going to give it some more thought as well.
I think the main struggle we face via Zoom is adding a funny, content into our speech. I don't know why, but when you come face to face, it is easier to make it fun. But when it comes to the Zoom, it is really struggling to put fun into your conversation. Maybe what's the main restriction? I don't know. But this is the main observation that I catch.
I don't know. I think part of it for me anyway is it's that just that sense of disconnection, that you're not in the same room. It's almost like this, to use a kind of slightly esoteric phrase, that you don't feel quite the same energy as you do in the same physical space, breathing the same air kind of thing. But I think that's probably a self-imposed restriction. It may be that because it's slightly more formalish on Zoom, that we just find it harder to be more spontaneous with that. Although I see lots of great table topics on Zoom, so I don't see why not. I mean, I hate it at the moment with the contests we're doing, that they certainly in our part of the world, that thank you, Meltem, we're area and above, all the audience have to turn their cameras off, so the speaker doesn't even get to see the audience. So you're doing the humorous speech contest, you can't hear the audience, you can't see the audience, you've just got to try and imagine the laughter and hope it's there. And I find that very very off-putting, both as an audience member and as a speaker. So that is just part of the challenge of the new normal, I guess. But my time is almost up, so I just wanted to do a kind of sum up a little bit around kind of what are my top tips for networking. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, but thinking about your outcome. And I think this is exactly the same as when you're giving a speech, you're preparing a speech. I always say to people when I'm coaching people, what is your outcome for the speech? And in particularly, what do you want your audience to do as a result of your speech? And the first time I said this to a couple of guys I was coaching, and they said, "What do you mean? I'm sorry, I don't quite understand that." And I said, "Well, do you want people to?" They were talking about board meetings in their company. I said, "Well, do you want people to approve a budget for something? Do you want to change a way of working? Do you want to collaborate on a particular project? What do you want them to do?" And this guy, who's a very senior business manager, said, "You know, I've never thought about a presentation like that before." And when he did that, I was kind of horrified. And I thought, well, if people don't think about what is their outcome, you know, don't think about an outcome in that sense, what is their outcome? And my theory is that most presenters, if they don't think about it consciously, they unconsciously have an outcome which is survival. They want to fill a slot of time without making an idiot of themselves. And if the audience get anything beneficial out of it, that's a bonus. And I don't think that's a good model for making good speeches. But if you know who your audience is and you think, what do I want them to be doing or thinking or feeling differently as a result of this presentation? And if you know that, then you can think about what am I going to put into the speech to help move them on that journey. But it also gives your brain the direction. It's a bit like having a satellite navigation system in your car. If you don't put a destination in, it's useless, really. It just tells you where you are at any moment in time. But if you tell it where you're going, you're driving along and you hit a roadblock or bad traffic, it will usually say something like, "Oh, there's a traffic jam ahead. You need to turn off here and divert, or stay on this route because it's faster than the other route." You know, but it can only do that if it knows where you're trying to get to. And I think our brain is like that. If our brain knows where we're trying to go when we're speaking, and we hit a roadblock that maybe people don't understand it, or somebody asks us a difficult question or something, we can adapt, you know, on the fly. We can find a detour, if you like. And our brain will say, "Tell them about this," or "What about this?" Whereas if you don't know where you're trying to get to, your brain just goes, "I'm stuck, don't know." So having a clear objective, I think, is really important. If it's going to any form of networking event, whether it's work, you know, social meetings or coffee meetings or around the coffee machine, whether it's a business networking meeting, whether it's a Toastmasters meeting or any other organization, I think regular, consistent attendance is a really important thing, because it takes time to build relationships. So getting to know people, you know, I've seen people who come to networking meetings, hand their business cards out, go away and wait for the phone to ring. And then they go, "Well, nobody contacted me. Networking doesn't work." And I say, no, networking works, but it's not a quick fix. You need to build that bit of that trust, that relationship. Some people say that the secret of networking is you need to get referrals or to get introductions. People need to know you, like you, and trust you. And you can't achieve all of that, or very rarely can you achieve all of that in a few minutes, or even 1 hour meeting or something like that. It needs regular, because that way you build consistency. People think, this person is committed, they're a serious attender, if they're going to be trusted and they're going to be regular at this, then they're going to turn up if I need them to do work for me or something like that. So, you know, our behaviors in networking affect people's perceptions of us as a human being. I would say focus your mindset on helping other people rather than getting, focus on giving. To follow up with people, particularly not necessarily with everybody in the room, but if there's certain people you think, I want to get to know them, or I think I could help them, or I think they could help me, then make a point of either before the meeting ends to say, "Hey, why don't we, private message them and say, do you fancy a coffee sometime, or do you fancy a Zoom meeting? I'd love to chat more about that book you were talking about, or that quotation or something." create those opportunities. You can do it after the meeting, but sometimes it's best to just strike when the iron is hot, as the old saying goes, and do it when it's fresh in your mind, rather than thinking, oh God, there was somebody I was going to contact with, last week at that meeting, and I've forgotten who it was by now. And make the most of all the opportunities that arise. In networking meetings, they're usually, as I said, a 1-minute introduction. Think about that, plan it. What are you going to say? Is it clear? Is it attention grabbing? All the things we learn in Toastmasters. You've got a minute to sell your business or to sell yourself. It's not a lot of time, so you need to grab people's attention. You can't tell them your entire life story or your entire product catalog or something in a minute. But if you ask them a question or get them thinking about something that they want to then come up to you and say, oh, I really want to know more about that, then job done. You've made the first step in that relationship. But also, if there are presentation slots available, some networking groups, they have guest speakers, and I find lots of people who attend networking meetings, they say, oh, and I've said you should give a speech, because from what you've told me, this sounds really interesting. I think lots of people would love to know more about this. Oh no, I'm too scared. I usually then tell them, well, you should come to Toastmasters and learn how to do it. You guys don't have that excuse, I'm sorry, because you're Toastmasters. But some people in Toastmasters say, oh yeah, I can speak in Toastmasters, but I'm scared to speak outside of Toastmasters. Well, networking meetings are a great chance to take your Toastmaster skills out into the community. And you can even get your speech evaluated either by getting another Toastmaster to come to the meeting, because speeches don't have to be done, all your speeches don't have to be done in meetings. You can do external meetings, and or you can get somebody to video your speech and then get that evaluated. So I think that pretty much concludes what I was going to say.
Natalie has one question: how to leverage our current social capital to support our career or business endeavors? If you look at chat, please.
Yeah, okay, let me just grab that. Oh yeah, got it there. Lovely, thanks. Yeah, I think it's what would I say to that? I think well, one example, I don't know if it's a direct example, is, I've known several Toastmasters who are not afraid to talk about Toastmasters outside of Toastmasters to their boss or in job interviews, and have virtually all of them have said that often the interview has focused in on Toastmasters because not many people do it. And the fact that you've demonstrated that you are serious about your career and you're investing your own time to develop yourself is a very attractive quality. So that's one way of doing that. But I think it's about, again, using your network and asking, you could use having a network. I think can't remember, was it Meltem that said that, but that she had made a virtue of the fact that she has quite a large network when she's talking to potential employers and things like that. So you're not just getting me, you're getting that network of resources that I can tap into, which is very valuable. So I think that's a really good point to bring out. I think, and asking, say, don't be afraid to ask your network for help or advice or references. I've seen people who've got jobs through, they've been made redundant all of a sudden and they've asked their network, you know me, if you know of anybody who's looking for somebody with my skill set, would you either put me in touch with them or would you ask them to get in touch with me? So I think that the more you open your eyes to it, there are lots of opportunities to leverage your own social capital to support yourself. And as I said, if it's your business, creating a network of people who could refer you or introduce you to potential clients. A lot of people underestimate the power of that. They just think about, if you like, selling themselves or their business to the people in the room. But if you think about it, whenever you're selling the people in the room have all got a network. So, you know, and so tell that, you know, I'm going to tell you about this. It may not be, or it probably won't be irrelevant to most of you in the room, but I all know that you have clients or friends or colleagues or whatever. So please think about them. And if this resonates with anybody that you know, put them in touch with me or give me their details and I'll contact them. So I hope that helped.
Thank you, Gavin. My last question.
Yeah.
You mentioned about prejudice. I strongly agree with you. For networking, no prejudice.
Yeah.
Did you have an experience, zero prejudice, or sometimes it is very important for networking? Never done any prejudice.
I think it's as human beings, we you know, we've all had certain upbringings, we've all had experiences that will color our judgment of people, whether it's based on sexuality or religion or creed or color or country or profession even. You know, I used to have a real thing against accountants. For some reason, they scared me because I'm not a numbers person, and I would avoid them like the plague because I didn't think I could talk to them. I somehow had this image of them as being just cold, heartless numbers people. But then I got to know somebody through another organization, through networking, who I didn't know was a networker, who was an accountant at first. And I just knew him as a business person. And we built up a relationship. Then I found out what he did and started to really understand him and understand that. So it's then changed my perception of other people with that label, if you like. So I think, you know, all we can do at the best of abilities is try to be as open-minded as possible. A friend of mine once said, he asked us all, we were in a meeting room, and he said, he went down each person and he asked us, what is the most expensive thing you can own? And we went around the room and people said, oh, I don't know, a fancy car, a Rolls Royce, a house, children, you know, diamond rings, a wife or a husband or whatever it was. And he said, yeah, those are all valid answers. He said, but I'll just give you one more. And he said, he just paused for a second and he said, how about a closed mind? How expensive is having a closed mind? And again, that was probably 30 or 40 years ago. And that idea has stuck with me. And I've shared it with a lot of people. And you know, I use it on myself now and again. If I'm suddenly realizing that I'm getting this, hang on a minute, how open is your mind in this context? Because you're going down a particular track rather than kind of opening up and saying, well, don't make a decision until I find out the facts or I know that person in a bit more detail. And I think there's a project, I think an international project, where they call it the Human Library, where the idea is you can go to places and instead of borrowing books, you can have a conversation with somebody. And you're encouraged to have a conversation with somebody who has a different viewpoint to you. It might be a different background. It might be, you might want to, speak with somebody who's been a convicted criminal, or, for somebody who's from a completely different religious perspective to you, or business perspective, whatever it is, different political perspective, and actually have a conversation without an argument, just to challenge your own perceptions of somebody. And I think that is such a brilliant idea. I haven't found one locally as yet in my part of the world, but I've read about them online, that there are groups around the world that do that. And I think it'd be a brilliant project to get involved with.
Gavin, your workshop is amazing. I would like to big applause with my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We all really appreciate your time. I want to first of all